What's good, everyone? It's your boy Natsu with another video for the channel. Welcome back to DMV Sports Zone. And today I got a really special video. It's gonna be a completely different type of video, very much documentary style, very much video essay style. Through my sociology class in college, I've very much gotten the opportunity to engage in deep research on this issue and really be able to create this video for you guys. And I'm glad that finally, I was able to do it, and it should be a very informative one. And with that being said, let's get to the intro.
Yeah, I know myself far too well to be a stranger of pain. Despite it all, we remaining the same. I'm just changing the game. Heart pure, never tainted with fame. Straight ahead, I'ma stay in my lane. Never switching courses, life's amazing.
All right, so the state of the black quarterback in 2021. I feel like before even diving into the current state, you got to get to the history of the black quarterback in the NFL. Firstly, in the early 1900s was a time when the quarterback position really did not look like what it looks like today, both in terms of the racial makeup of the position, as well as all the roles the quarterback position entailed, with not just passing the ball and rushing, but also kicking. Nevertheless, in this time, tailbacks began playing in the single wing form of the quarterback position. And Fritz Pollard, the nobleman whose name actually represents the Chief nonprofit organization pushing for minority hiring across the NFL today, became the first black NFL player to take snaps behind center. Despite this accomplishment though, Pollard of course dealt with his fair share of racism from the media, fans, and even his own teammates. Heck, Pollard even had beer bottles thrown at him and demeaning songs such as Bye Bye Blackbird sung at him. Then a series of changes really limited the number of black players, let alone quarterbacks in the league, including the demolition of the American Football League, that led to many white new players being hired by the NFL. And the infamous George Preston Marshall of my beloved Washington Redskins, at the time, sadly, helping establish an NFL-wide ban on all black players. And the ban didn't even get lifted until Marshall was actually threatened by President John F. Kennedy to lift the ban, or else the Redskins' home stadium lease would have ended at the time. And then in 1949, very much marked a momentous year in the NFL with George Taliaferro becoming the first black player drafted into the league after playing college football at Indiana University. And Taliaferro was not only the first black player to be drafted, but also the first black modern QB to start for an NFL team in 1950. Then a wave of black quarterbacks in the 60s and 70s who actually were allowed by their respective coaches and teams to throw the ball entered the league, including Willie Thrower, John Walton, Parnell Dickinson, Vince Evans, and Marlon Briscoe, the latter of whom was the first black quarterback in the NFL Super Bowl era. Briscoe, though, nonetheless dealt with his fair share of hate and discrimination as a black NFL quarterback in the late 60s, so much so that he had to end his career as an NFL passer and was forced to move to the wide receiver position, having even made the Pro Bowl as a wideout late in his career. Then of course, a young buck out of a small town in Louisiana was drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and a new age of the black quarterback dawned on the NFL. While Doug Williams, an African-American quarterback who is most known for a tremendous barrier-breaking accomplishment that he had in the late 80s, which I'll discuss a little bit later, was drafted in 1978 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the NFL. He and Vince Evans of the Chicago Bears, who's actually the only black quarterback in the NFL in the early 1980s, joined the United States Football League partly because it was more welcoming, albeit only slightly, to black quarterbacks. So it wasn't really until 1984 when another quarterback, who is widely known now, entered the NFL, when the state of the black quarterback forever changed. And that man's name was Warren Moon. After breaking all sorts of records and winning a Grey Cup title in the Canadian Football League, Moon joined the Houston Oilers in 1984 and went on to be the most successful black quarterback in NFL history up until that point, earning himself 9 Pro Bowl nods and a top 5 place in NFL record books in passing yards, even while not attempting a pass until he was 27 years old, all in a career that allowed him to become the first black quarterback to be enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And keep in mind that it still wasn't all peachy for Moon in the 80s. It wasn't really at all, as he dealt with constant ridicule by fans and opposing players. Many just could not fathom a black quarterback at the time who was smart enough not only to make plays with his feet, but also with his arm. And then came Randall Cunningham, who was drafted into the NFL in 1985 and really became the star black quarterback that paved the way for future black quarterbacks to take over the league. Cunningham was one of, if not the best player in the entire league from 1988 through 1998, and even while not having captured that elusive Lombardi trophy, brought the smart and electric play you want to see out of the quarterback position. And this was most apparent in the 1990 season when Cunningham recorded 30 touchdown passes and over 900 yards on the ground, a feat that hadn't been replicated until 2015 with another great black quarterback who I'll mention a little bit later. But even after Cunningham's historic 1990 season, the NFL also saw a new wave of black replacement quarterbacks entering the league. And of course, during about the same time, the aforementioned Doug Williams became the first black quarterback to ever play in the Super Bowl and to win the Lamar Trophy for my Washington Redskins at the time, and now Washington football team. And as the century turned, 2000 brought forth another milestone to stay the black quarterback, the selection of Michael Vick with the #1 overall pick, the first time that's ever been done. And a couple years after Vick was tearing up the league with his electrifying play, Donovan McNabb was another black quarterback who really excelled in the league, ultimately leading the Eagles to a Super Bowl appearance in 2005. Shortly after, Vince Young, the talented national champion winner, who I know you guys all know from the University of Texas, became the first black quarterback to win Rookie of the Year in the NFL for the Titans in 2006. From then on, black quarterbacks have undoubtedly gained more prominence across the league with the #1 overall draft selections of Jamarcus Russell, yes Russell, Cam Newton, Jameis Winston, and Kyler Murray, as well as the #2 overall draft selection of Robert Griffin III, who shook up the league in his rookie year, inspired so much hope for this young Washington fan at the time.
Still on his feet, RG3 is going to outrace everybody.
And then you have former Heisman Trophy winner Cam Newton's 2015 NFL MVP campaign, a season in which he also led the Panthers to their second Super Bowl appearance in franchise history, really put the black quarterback on the map in the NFL. And despite constant critiques on his passing accuracy, even while throwing to one of the most depleted wide receiver cores I've ever seen on a Super Bowl team, and his attitude, Newton was able to prevail in what was an entertaining record-breaking season. And most recently, we have had a new age of black quarterbacks in the league, including Russell Wilson, Teddy Two Gloves Bridgewater, Dwayne Haskins, well, I'll get to a little bit later, Jacoby Brissett, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, aforementioned Murray, and last but not least, Patrick Mahomes. It should also be noted that 2019 was undoubtedly the most successful year for the black quarterback. Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl champion and Super Bowl MVP of that year, a year after winning the NFL MVP at the age of 23 years old. In 2019, Lamar Jackson won the NFL MVP at 22 years old. And Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott were all also MVP candidates at some point throughout the season. And now, in 2021, these same quarterbacks are still taking over the league, with Patrick Mahomes being arguably the best player, period, in all of football, and just coming off the heels of a second straight Super Bowl appearance. Jackson has also just got over the hump in the playoffs by winning his first NFL playoff game, which, a lot of people don't realize this, but he's only 24 years old. Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson are surely top 5 quarterbacks in the league at this point. And trade rumors aside for both right now, they seem to be beloved across the league as great players and men. Dak Prescott and Kyler Murray, meanwhile, are also great quarterbacks going into the 2021 season. Despite the progress though, and overall success of these black quarterbacks and others across the league, the black quarterback does appear to still be a target of disproportionate discrimination and prejudice in comparison to their white counterparts coming into and playing in the league. Black quarterbacks in the league have even recently dealt with a disproportionate level of discrimination, prejudice, and racially coded language, always seen of all of them in the NFL and beyond. In 2003, conservative radio talk show host Rush Limbaugh continuously claimed that quarterback Donovan McNabb, who was then on the Eagles, received much more credit than he deserved, and hadn't been that good from the get-go, after leading the Eagles to a 12-4 record and an NFC Championship berth. Oh, and also after being named to the Pro Bowl that year as well, and being labeled the best quarterback in the business by future Super Bowl winning head coach Andy Reid. Oh, and just to add a cherry on top, being 36-22 as a starter up until that point. Limbaugh even went as far as to say that McNabb got too much adoration from the media because of the simple fact, wait for it, that he was a black quarterback in the NFL.
I'm sorry to say this. I don't think he's been that good from the get-go. I think what we've had here is a little social concern in the NFL. I think the media has been very desirous that a black quarterback do well. We're interested in black coaches and black quarterbacks doing well. I think there was a little hope invested in McNabb, and he got a lot of credit for the performance of this team that he really didn't deserve.
And then from 2007, 2010, Michael Vick to this day gets a lot of disdain, and on some level, rightfully so, for his reprehensible acts participating in a dogfighting ring during his playing days in Atlanta. And so does Ben Roethlisberger, right, for the series of serious sexual assault allegations made against him around the same time as Vick's legal troubles in the late 2000s. But has anybody wondered why Mike Vick still gets much more vitriol to the level where some still view him as a criminal or thug for his role in the dogfighting ring, while discussion around Roethlisberger's actions is largely swept under the rug, minus a couple of tweets every now and then on Twitter? Keep in mind that the only reason why Roethlisberger was not put on trial in 2009, 2010 for his transgressions was because the women who accused him of sexual assault were worried about the media storm that would follow suit, despite the very graphic images they put forth of Roethlisberger closing a backroom door and forcibly assaulting them. So while the legal punishments that both received Makes sense. I'll give you that. They make sense for Roethlisberger and Vic. Vic had a lot more evidence of his guilt. I get that. But the fact that Roethlisberger's image has cleaned up pretty well amongst media and fans since that time, while Vic's image still is disproportionately tainted despite the positive steps he's taken in recent years to be a better man for his family and his community, is definitely eye-opening. Maybe some of the hatred that came his way immediately after his ATL days was compounded by the fact that he wasn't palatable as a player in the league by some. Rocking cornrows and bringing some non-traditional QB swagger to the NFL might have already rubbed a lot of people the wrong way and may have left them more comfortable labeling him as a criminal as soon as the dogfighting allegations came up. Now, how about Cam Newton? In his Panthers days, he was often labeled as overly emotional and a sore loser, even at the height of his career from 2014 to 2016. While Tom Brady, even Philip Rivers, have and continue to be adored by the media and fans for their passionate competitiveness, which is even more impressive for the former who, even while being the undisputed GOAT, case closed, he's the undisputed GOAT, continues to brush off standard post-game sportsmanship-filled handshakes with opposing players after losses at the age of 43 years old. Tyrod Taylor, in a 2017 interview, noted that the specific critiques of his game and those of other black quarterbacks he knows always seem to come up. He relies too much on his legs, on his athleticism. He's simply not smart enough to throw over the middle of the field. Lamar Jackson was also one of the most notable black quarterbacks in recent years who dealt with unfair prejudice and discrimination, both while coming into the league in 2018 and while playing in it at an extremely high level, no less, for the Baltimore Ravens. At the 2018 NFL Combine, Jackson, a player so great that he won a Heisman Trophy during his true freshman year at the University of Louisville. Imagine winning a Heisman Trophy in your freshman year. I know all of us were trying to just fit in our new college surroundings. This man's won a Heisman Trophy and only broke countless records during college. He faced a barrage of questions from the media and NFL scouts alike about his readiness to play at quarterback at the next level, especially surrounding his accuracy, with many calling for him to even switch positions altogether to wide receiver or running back, where he could really showcase his athletic prowess. For Jackson especially, but so many black quarterbacks as well, stats and on-field production didn't matter one bit at the position, when all teams I've looked for in the past are traditional, stationary, pocket passers with little to no mobility. What makes Jackson's story even more a case of racial prejudice in the NFL is, firstly, quarterbacks such as Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen went way ahead of Jackson, despite their relatively poor production in college and their own passing inaccuracies. And secondly, the continued prejudice that continues to be inflicted on Jackson even after winning the freaking NFL MVP award in 2019. Many fans and media members alike continue to solely recognize his dynamic rushing ability as a running back playing quarterback instead of his accurate passing decision making, especially in relation to quarterbacks who were drafted before him.
Lamar, you said pretty much all offseason that you were going to throw the ball. Do you think you maybe proved to people that you were throwing the ball? That you
Probably not. Not bad for a running back.
And then, of course, you have Deshaun Watson. Watson dealt with his own share of prejudice going into the 2017 NFL Draft, as despite his record-breaking career at Clemson University as a national champion and Heisman Trophy finalist, as well as bringing all of the intangibles NFL teams constantly clamor for at the quarterback position, such as leadership and decision-making, teams were more than comfortable passing over him in the draft. Heck, the Bears traded up and picked a completely unproven quarterback coming out of college instead, in Mitch Trubisky at number 2 overall. And look how that's turned out for them. Watson has also noted that since he was drafted by the Texans in 2017, that black quarterbacks are often stereotyped and put into the box by the dual threat quarterback label set out for them by the media and fans alike, who seem to attribute athleticism to quarterbacks like Watson, not necessarily high processing or intelligence, right? In 2018, Watson, despite the great quarterback that he is, was actually subjected to specific racist attacks with this very stereotype in mind, as after one bad decision in a regular season game that year, one bad decision, the superintendent of the Houston Suburban School District of Alaska posted on Facebook that when you need precise decision making, you just can't count on a black quarterback. The superintendent later resigned, but the message was heard loud and clear. Black quarterbacks were deemed not wise enough to consistently lead a team to wins. And now you have Watson's current situation in Houston, where he recently formally requested a trade from the team. So much hate in Houston and elsewhere has gone his way for trying to force his way out and really breaching his mega contract. Oh, while defensive end J.J. Watt does the same exact thing with very little fanfare, and in all actuality gets nothing but respect from fans in the organization. And then you have Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, who oftentimes get constant ridicule about their height. Luckily for Murray, he still went number 1 overall despite these concerns, but it took years of black quarterbacks such as Russell Wilson being passed over because of their measurables before the Arizona Cardinals felt comfortable taking Murray number 1 overall in 2019. For Wilson especially, he was passed over by so many average to below average quarterbacks such as Brock freaking Osweiler over concerns about his size when guys like Drew Brees, Doug Flutie, And even Joe Theismann had shown a strong ability to be productive despite their limited size. And what makes this phenomenon of black quarterbacks being passed over in the draft because of concerns over their size or their character or their decision making more problematic is that you constantly get guys like Johnny Manziel and Baker Mayfield with trouble pass and pretty minuscule sizes, if we're going to be honest, where NFL teams have no problem drafting. No problem. Baker Mayfield, number 1 overall. Dak Prescott. Ever since being drafted in the 4th round by the Dallas Cowboys in 2016, Prescott has never felt truly embraced by Cowboys coaches, front office, and especially the owner, good old Jerry Jones. Despite the fact that Prescott had a higher win percentage than his predecessor, Tony Romo, going into the 2020 season, while also putting up great stats, Prescott has never been able to truly supplant the beloved longtime starter in the eyes of Jerry Jones, dating all the way back to when there were rumors that the owner and de facto GM would still allow for a QB competition between Romo and Prescott, even after Prescott's, 7-1, 8-1 start to the 2016 season. And now the same owner who is willing to dish out all that money to the always injured Romo, with very little playoff success to show for it, is trying his hardest to not pay Dak Prescott on a long-term deal that he deserves as at least the top 7 quarterback in this league right now. Dwayne Haskins. Speaking of Washington, Dwayne Haskins. Say what you want about how bad Haskins was, and he was really bad in DC. Didn't pan out. But way before anyone got an opportunity to even determine whether Haskins was even a good quarterback or a bad quarterback, media personality Doug Gottlieb claimed that a Redskins team source at the time said that the team thought Haskins was dyslexic after concerns over his ability to read an NFL playbook. You know, the same quarterback who had showed promise in his first few NFL starts, right, at the end of the 2019 season. But only a couple months prior came off a 50 touchdown, 8 interception record-breaking season at Ohio State. So even while Haskins definitely did not pan out in Washington, the fact that these false rumors, they were false, confirmed false, were able to spread about his intelligence and his ability to grasp NFL concepts from a playbook only fuel the stereotype that black QBs are ill-equipped mentally for the NFL. And there have been other points of progress, right, over the years for the black quarterback, but also continued disproportionate discrimination seen amongst these players. First and foremost, black quarterbacks are now more than ever, especially due to the advent of social media, right, as we've seen across sports, empowered to speak out about social issues as the leaders of their respective teams and often the face of their respective franchises. For example, we have Dwayne Haskins, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, and others speaking out in support of protesters after the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and so many others in the summer of 2020. And also using their platforms both on the field and through social media to amplify cases, especially pertinent to the African-American community. But at the same time, many of these same black QBs are oftentimes told that they are not smart enough to have informed decisions about political issues and are essentially told to shut up and play. And also, of course, you have Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick remains a focal point in conversations around the state of the black quarterback a near 5 years after he last played, largely because he was and continues to be ostracized by the league for his peaceful protest during the playing of the national anthem in 2016. So even while black QBs feel greater freedom today to speak out against social injustice, it took essentially the banishment of Kaepernick and the national civil unrest of the summer of 2020 for NFL organizations to at least be somewhat comfortable embracing socially conscious causes. And on the flip side, a step towards progress, teams are also a little more comfortable selecting QBs to call in the draft. We have Jacoby Brissett, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, and Tua Tagovailoa, all drafted in recent years. But you also have the reoccurring theme of black QBs oftentimes seen as being unpolished and unfit and raw to play at the position on the next level, and perhaps even asked to move to other skill positions to make full use of their athletic prowess. There we go with that athleticism that we saw in full effect with Jalen Hurts in the 2020 NFL draft process. You also see black quarterbacks more and more getting long-term extensions and being paid justly for their services. Patrick Mahomes is the richest player in the NFL, and Deshaun Watson is right behind him. You also have Russell Wilson right behind Watson. So that seems cool, right? But how many times have we seen black QBs, even dating back to the 2020 free agency period, still get underpaid and or be devoid of the opportunity to sign big contracts with their respective teams? Cam Newton and Jameis Winston had to settle for extremely cheap deals in the 2020 free agency period, even as established quarterbacks who had pretty good success in the past with their teams. While guys like Chase Daniel and Case Keenum, who wasn't so hot in 2019 when he played in DC, nothing more than career NFL backups, got paid triple and even quadruple the yearly salaries of Winston and Newton. And then you have to take into account, you really do, what QB's coach Quincy Avery recently noted in a 2019 article for The Undefeated. Previously, black quarterbacks had to face overt prejudice. Today, it's systemic. Black QBs are afforded opportunities, but they aren't allowed to be average because they don't have enough decision makers who look like them. And and really believe in them. So you cannot have this discussion on the state of the black quarterback without bringing up the lack of racial diversity in front offices and on coaching staffs across the league. Sure, we have the 2020 Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, showing the world that success is really possible when you afford African Americans opportunities to coach in this league. And you have the Washington football team. My Washington football team. Of all teams, LOL, with Dan Snyder up top, right? Dan stole the team. Preaching and practicing diversity from the president position in the organization on downwards to general manager, with the recent hire of Martin Mayhew, and head coach, obviously, with Ron Rivera. We also, yes, technically have the Rooney Rule that in theory is supposed to promote diversity in NFL coaching in front office circles. But this diversity in some of the most important positions, and not just the NFL, but arguably all sports, is few and far in between. 4 out of 32 NFL head coaches are currently black and Latino. Black coaches make up 239 positions on assistant coaching staffs, while white coaches make up 499 positions. There are only 5 black general managers in the NFL. Although this number seems to be slowly increasing after recent months in the 2021 offseason. There are also countless examples of qualified black coaches such as Eric Bieniemy and black front office execs such as Louis Riddick being passed over in hiring processes across the league. This lack of African Americans in positions of power within NFL organizations then likely has a huge impact on the way black quarterbacks are perceived and treated across league circles. So where does that leave us today in March of 2021? The state of the black quarterback in 2021 is surely much improved from the days of Marlon Briscoe and Warren Moon. I'm not going to say otherwise. But progress still needs to be made to allow black quarterbacks to truly be equals with their white counterparts. I believe, though, that with this generation of amazing black quarterbacks taking over the league, as well as the next generation soon to come, you can't forget about them, with guys like Justin Fields and Trey Lance likely to be drafted this April. NFL executives and coaches will have no choice but to embrace these quarterbacks more and more. Or else, they'll be left shaking their heads in disappointment that they did not welcome the next great quarterback to lead them to the promised land. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Again, I know it's completely different, but I had to get some things off my chest, as you guys know. Have a great rest of your week, and see you on the next one. Peace.
Looking at the bigger picture portrait and I smile wide. Performed a song and the crowd cried. How can I lie? I'm tearing up as I'm starting to stare in y'all eyes. I know the shit you going through the last month. You're stressing as you hitting on